show. That guy in that show.
Hey, yeah, Prof. This week's That Guy that was in that show is Don Red Barry. Prof, can you please enlighten myself and the rest of the listeners about the talented and varied career of Don Red Barry?
I sure can. Don Red Barry was born Milton Poimboeuf on January 11th, 1910 in Houston, Texas, USA. There is some question about his year of birth. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was young, and he was a high school and college football player and moved to L.A. to get into advertising. He was discovered by John Wayne during a football game, and Wayne was a football player as well, and Wayne introduced him to producers. He got some small roles and got the part of Red Ryder in the serial The Adventures of Red Ryder, where he got his nickname Red. At first, he did mostly Western and war films, but he definitely branched out. So in movies, he did the serial, like I said, Adventures of Red Ryder, propaganda film, Remember Pearl Harbor, The Purple Heart with Dana Andrews, 7 Men from Now with Randolph Scott, Alvarez Kelly with William Holden and Richard Whitmark, Shalako with Sean Connery, Frankenstein 1970 with Boris Karloff. He was in Orca. He was in Dr. Dracula with John Carradine, Rio Lobo, Hooper, Ocean's 11, Andy Hardy Comes Home, and The Shakiest Gun in the West, among many, many others. Also did a lot of television. Cheyenne, Sugarcoat, Cold 45, Maverick, Lawman, Bourbon Street Beat, The Roaring Twenties, U.S. Marshal, Dragnet, The Virginian, Little House on the Prairie, Rich Man, Poor Man, Book 2, Rawhide, Bat Masterson, Knots Landing, Charlie's Angels, Chips, Quincy M.E., Beretta, The Rockford Files, Police Story, and Police Woman, The Bionic Woman, The $6 Million Man, Macmillan and Wife, The Blue Knight, Petrocelli, Starsky and Hutch, The Rookies, Ironside, and one of my favorites, Kolchak the Night Stalker, The Waltons, Adam 12, Emergency, Love American Style, Gunsmoke, Land of the Giants, Wild Wild West, and of course, Batman. Red Barry died July 17th, 1980 at the age of 70-ish in North Hollywood, California, USA. And I did want to point out, he was in Batman. I love Batman. He was in Wild Wild West. I love Wild Wild West. He was in Kolchak the Night Stalker. I love Kolchak the Night Stalker. But one movie that I want to point out that he was in Alvarez Kelly. I really love that movie. William Holden plays a half Mexican cowboy, and it has one of the most fun cattle stampedes I've ever seen. Really, really worth watching Alvarez Kelly, and Red Barry's great in it. So, Chris, what are some of your memories of Red Barry?
Well, as a youngster, I'm watching reruns of Batman, and there's Red Barry. Not too many guys, I think, can claim that they were henchmen to two different villains on the 60s Batman, but Don Red Barry can claim that. So he's a two-time henchman. He was the Grand Visor to Victor Bono's King Tut in Season 1 in the episodes The Curse of Tut and The Pharaohs in a Rut, and he was also the henchman Tarantula to Black Widow, played by Tallulah Bankhead in Season 2, in the Batman episode Black Widow Strikes Again, and Caught in the Spider's Den. He had a memorable semi-recurring role of the racist/bigot character Judd Larrabee on Little House on the Prairie. Prof, you mentioned he was on Kolchak the Night Stalker. He played Tyrell, the security guard, in the episode Mr. Ring. That was the one with the robot. And Prof, as you mentioned, there was this huge mammoth list of all of these shows I watched as a child, either in first run or in reruns. The Waltons, Adam 12, Mannix, The Wild Wild West, Charlie's Angels, Chips, Walt Disney, Beretta, Macmillan and Wife, $6 Million Man, Police Woman, The Bionic Woman, Starsky and Hutch. I mean, all of these shows were things I watched back in the day, and he had parts in all of them. The Rookies, I love The Rookies. The Rockford Files, one of my favorite shows.
Yep.
And I think the episode was Hard X for a Fool, was that particular episode that he was in the Rockford Files. Just so many things that he was in, and always gave a great performance. Very distinctive character actor look, and I have to say, he nailed his parts, and whatever he was in, he was really, really good. There's a moment in the Batman episode where he was King Tut's henchman where he gets wise to a ruse that's being pulled on, and you could just see that he's having fun doing this henchman role with respect to that. I like that. And getting to work with Tallulah Bankhead, I'm sure had to be a treat when he did that with Batman, because he was like the number one guy. It wasn't like assorted henchman. He had some nice exchanges with Tallulah, so that was really, really cool. Really played a character you love to hate on Little House on the Prairie with playing the Larrabee character. There was an episode called Barn Burner where he was accused of burning the Garvey barn, and he pushed young Garvey, the boy, and he hit his head, knocked him out. But then it was thought that he burned Garvey's barn down when it really was an accident caused by the sun. And it's one of the better episodes that he's in. Good performance by Moses Gunn. It passed that guy as well in that particular episode. Please check that one out. But yeah, fine character actor. And I don't want to fall asleep on the movie Hooper, where he had a bit part playing a sheriff, where he's trying to question Burt Reynolds and Jan Michael Vincent's characters as they're drinking off to the side on a beach, and they're just a huge mountain of empty beer cans. And Barry comes up to him, assessing that, hey, these two guys might be a little drunk, and things take a decided working turn where Vincent insults Barry, and things don't go well. But once the two guys get in their rocket car that they're test driving, poor Don Red Barry gets insulted and can't catch these guys with the rocket car, so he's not having a great afternoon. But nonetheless, a fine, good character actor, and I really, really am glad we're covering him here today.
I agree. So this week's That Guy in That Show is Don Red Barry.
He's that guy, you know. He's that guy in that show. That guy in that show.
Now we'd like to get some thank yous and plugs and shout outs out of the way. We'll start with the mascot of our show, Robin at Robin031 Robin. Robin, thank you for being the love of my life. Here's a nice little kiss. Little smoochy poo. Robin, thank you very much for being the mascot of our show. I love you. It's our friend Two Sleeps at Two Sleeps Music. Two Sleeps puts on a concert twice a week. You can catch one concert on Sunday afternoons at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. You can find it by going into your computer, typing in Two Sleeps Music Twitch TV. Now, once you're there, you click on the link. Then, once you're there, click on another link and you'll sign up and get involved in an interactive chat. Once you're in the chat, you'll find a link to a playlist of well over 200 songs. You can tell Two Sleeps what you'd like to hear, and he will play it. The concerts last for a little over an hour, or depending on when Two Sleeps is able to handle all the requests. You might hear some Beatles 8 days a week, as suggested by Robin. How about Fire Lake by Bob Seger? Another one that Robin suggested, just Two Sleeps. Hey, I could play these both really good, and thanks to Robin for suggesting those songs. How about some Foo Fighters? How about some Tom Petty? Oh, how about some Johnny Cash, or how about some Commander Cody? How about some Monkees? How about some Stray Cats? You'll get a whole plethora of a lot of genres that Two Sleeps can pull off. Then on Tuesdays, Two Sleeps also puts on a concert at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Same rules apply. Want to give a shout out to Kara, a.k.a. Karasaurus Rex, producer and the woman behind the scenes, keeping everything under control. Good stuff there as well. Music puts a smile on my face. It elevates and boosts my mood, so please check it out. Oh, before I forget, he also has a very inexpensive Patreon. For $1 mere $1, you can get some original content. Please check out our friend Two Sleeps at Two Sleeps Music. It's our buddy Randy. Randy can be found at RandyLanders1 over on Twitter, or Frumpy Sketch Artist on Blue Sky. Randy puts out robotic sketches each and every day. He's collected 2 volumes of his work that are available on Amazon as we speak. Randy also does a podcast called Soundtrack Alley, where Randy looks at how music enhances a film, along with some of the film's trivia. I always look at it in a different light after Randy's podcast, Soundtrack Alley. It's our friend Cat Victory at Cat Victory on Blue Sky, and we've got some comments that we're going to address with some of our past episodes. We'll start with Mac Rocks, when I covered an issue of Amazing Spider-Man, number 22 from way back in the day. Mac Rocks says, "This is the return of the Ringmaster, which I believe was issue number 16, and I think Macrox is correct, which featured Daredevil in his original yellow costume." Oh. Indeed so. Macrox, good expert with respect to the early days of Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Amazing Spider-Man. Macrox continues, so yes, this is the return match. It's always a pleasure visiting these old issues, especially as told by our comic master, Chris himself. Oh, well, thank you, Macrox. Yeah. Back at you, though, my friend, because you are astute with respect to this era of The Amazing Spider-Man. With respect to when we talked about the Hitchhiker episode of The Twilight Zone, we heard from John Manfred 810. This is a good Twilight Zone episode, Prof. I used to do a lot of hitchhiking back in the 1970s, and I never said to anybody, I believe you're going my way.
Yeah, creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. Prof, we talked about this briefly too, but I'm wondering if someone you know might have had a lot of interesting stories with respect to that as well back in the day, some unusual things. But yeah, that was a thing. That was definitely a thing back then.
Yeah, my wife was a big hitchhiker in Northern California, and definitely met some very cool people. She had all good experiences, so no problems on her side, but I know a lot of other people did.
Very nice. We talked about A Stop at Willoughby. We heard from Mr. Regamix. One, my Willoughby was named Greenwood Acres Family Campground. In Jackson, Michigan. It was a little slice of heaven. Oh,
Yes.
Very, very nice. I like how everybody has their own kind of quote-unquote Willoughby in their head, and that's really, really cool. Prof, you might have one. I think I might have one as well. At Jackson, Michigan, I think it's a town if I'm not too familiar, not too far outside of Metro Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. I'm sure it's a place I've been through, but not necessarily stopped at, if anything, maybe at a gas station. So I'm going to have to look up Greenwood Acres Family Campground. Thank you so much. We got another comment from our friend Cat Victory. Join the professor and myself as they take a very thoughtful and deep dive at A Stop at Willoughby. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Yeah. And once again, we heard from Mac Rocks. And Mac Rocks, I don't blame you, but here he goes. Okay, I'm thoroughly confused, guys. I know you covered this episode before. I'm also very confused. Is this what you're going to be doing now? Truncating the podcast into 10-minute or so segments on each particular topic? Do you know I will always morally support you guys and appreciate your podcast be well? So thanks, Prof. And you had I'm a little confused myself. Yeah. Prof, for the benefit of Mac Rocks, myself, and the rest of the listeners, break it down for us once 100%. Again, if you could, please.
Yeah, and we're kind of transforming our kind of production process into this new vibe. So, we're not being consistent at the moment, but the plan is that Mondays is going to be existing content, right? Content that we've already released that we're repackaging individually. Wednesday is going to be new, the traditional Professor Frenzy show content every week. And Friday is going to be horror movies. And we're going to start more consistent horror movies every Friday, starting this week with Phantasm. So brace yourself. Phantasm is coming.
Thank you so much for doing that. Mac Rocks continues. We recently talked about Carl Weathers in our That Guy segment, and Mac Rocks says, what an outstanding actor. Oh, yeah. Yes, he was more than Creed, and I loved him in all of his roles. I agree that when Apollo died, something touched me deeply, as the friendship he had with Rocky was a true brotherhood of men. I love that observation. Thank you, Mac Rocks. Totally. Mac Rocks continues. Reminds me, as a kid, and kind of a kid I was always at odds with. One time we went at it, and after a brutal fight, we came away as best friends. Wow, there you go.
That's how it happens.
So thanks for the episode, and take care, guys. Hi-yo, Silver, away! Oh, what a lovely story. Thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. That's really cool.
And very normal, guys that they butt heads, and you fight, and you get it out of your system, and then you're friends. Then you respect each other. So that's the way it goes.
Yep. We also once again heard from Cat Victory with respect to Carl Weathers. He said, check out this look at the great Carl Weathers from myself and Professor Frenzy. Thank you so much, gang. We had some likes and reposts with respect to this, and we want to make sure we get everybody with their nice shout out. We'll start with David D.B. Andre. Thank you, my friend. Chris Hamby at Chris Hamby Films. It's our friends Darren and Ruth at the Rad Adventures Network. Please check out Rad Adventures for their whole plethora of podcasts. Marco Baljovic. I hope I got that somewhat close, Marco. My apologies if I mispronounced your name. Once again, DSA May Collins, thank you for your longtime support. It's our friend Clinton who does a podcast called Coffee and Comics. Coffee and Comics is a podcast where Clinton will look at a comic book and about the time it takes to down a cup of coffee. Occasionally, Clinton will have on a guest and ask some very, very fascinating and interesting questions. Not to be outdone, Clinton also does Fan Film Fridays over the Longbox Crusade feed. Once you're there, though, you're going to have a whole treasure trove of some awesome podcasts from some friends of ours. Please check out the Longbox Crusade and their feed for awesome podcasts. Days of High Adventure is a podcast where Clinton looks at sword and sorcery comics as time permits, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Power Hour, that's with John and Lane respectively. Bill Beer is our friend who does a podcast called The Bat Pod. Please check it out. Current Batman comics, a lot of interesting developments over on Batman, so please be sure to check out the take on that. And Magazines of Monsters. This is our friend Billy D, who looks at a whole range of stuff, which is right in my wheelhouse, be it Bronze Age horror comics, Hammer films, classic horror films, and my personal favorite, The Brave and the Bob, which looks at comic books specifically written by Bob Haney. It's a treat, it's a hoot, and it always takes me down memory lane. Thank you so much for all of the output you guys put out. From everybody that we've just mentioned, we applaud and salute you. If I overlooked you, my sincerest and deepest apologies. Please let me know on the socials at BTO and Batbooks. Better still, to cover all the bases, please let the professor himself know at Professor Frenzy. Gang, thank you so much for listening and your continued support.
Thank you for listening to the Professor Frenzy Show. You can find our podcast if you do an iTunes search for the Professor Frenzy Show. You can listen to the show on Twitter and find me on Twitter at Professor Frenzy and Chris at BTO and Batbooks.
Hey, we're on Facebook over the Professor Frenzy Show page. We're on Instagram at Professor Frenzy. We're now also on Amazon Music, and we are now also on YouTube. Just visit youtube.com/Professor Frenzy, all one word. We are now also on TikTok, so go to Professor Frenzy 2 to see our videos.
If you have an Android phone, the Professor Frenzy Show is part of the free network. Just swipe right on your homepage and look in the art section of the podcast lists. Whatever device you use, you can subscribe to our podcast feed by doing an iTunes search for Professor Frenzy.
Thank you for listening to the Professor Frenzy Show. Let us know on Twitter what you think about our show, and please help us get the word out to people that might like these kinds of comics.
Thanks to everyone for listening. We look forward to chatting more about comics next week. And please remember, pick up your pull.
Professor Frenzy. Professor Frenzy.
All original content of the Professor Frenzy Show is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported License.
Professor Frenzy.
You are on the Frenzy Feed.